Hi everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. Today we're doing a mobile call here at some student apartments. This 2006 Nissan 350Z. The owner tells me that before classes ended in the spring, the car just wouldn't start. Immobilizer problem, apparently. He had it towed to the dealer, the Nissan dealer, and they told him it needs a new BCM and a new Immobilizer antenna, right next to the ignition switch, and parts were discontinued. So even if they could get them for, $1,000, So let's diagnose this thing. It's been sitting here for 3 months. The owner just came back to the country, international student, and the battery's completely dead. So I told him, hey, you need a new battery. But for now, I just have jumper cables hooked up, so we have power on the car. Let's scan it for codes and see if the dealer diagnosis was accurate. And by the way, when I hooked up the jumper cables, it started flashing and the horn is blaring. So I took a whole bunch of fuses out of the IPDM to disable the horn, disable the headlights, so they're not flashing and turning on and off. So we can do a scan. Alright, so inside the car, it is a crank no start. I don't want to crank it right now because we just have jumper cables. We don't have a boost pack on it. But this little ring with an LED, that LED should flash if the antenna tries to read the key. It did not flash. If I take the key out, put the key in, turn the key, it should try to recognize the chip in the key, and it does not. The Immobilizer light, the security light, is actually right here. It's a little red LED. You can kind of see it in the window there. So if I turn it off, it's off. Turn it on, it just stays lit solid. That means the Immobilizer is not happy. And I did do a full code scan here. So only a few codes stored. TCM, I don't really care. ABS, battery voltage abnormal, obviously. And ECM, we have lock mode and chain of immobilizer key. So P1614, let's look that code up. And also, we can test the key chip itself using this handy tool I got on AES Wave. It is the Proximity Smart Key System Tester, the diagnostic box. So if we click transponder test, and you just stick the key in the slot, right in here, and look at that, transponder detected, 125 kilohertz, so I'm not worried about the key itself. We just checked that. We're worried about this antenna not reading the key. Let's go do some research. All data, P1614, chain of MU key, so there's the code. Check NATS, let's see, antenna amp installation. How to replace NATS antenna amplifier. So they want to do that. Check the ignition key ID chip. We checked the chip just now with the diagnostic box. It's fine. Check power supply for NATS antenna amp. So we need to get to this antenna. Check antenna signal line. Just after turning ignition switch on, pointer tester should move. So we can use a scope because that's looks like a data line, signal line 1, signal line 2, and ground. So it's 4 wires, and the wiring diagram here shows the BCM is in charge of the Immobilizer. It talks to the ECM on the CAN, so we don't have any communication problems. NATS antenna amplifier behind ignition key cylinder. So 4 pins. We have a ground. Pin 1 is a blue wire coming from the IPDM, fuse 7715 amp, and then 2 signal wires. So let's get to this connector and see if we have power, ground, and communication to this NATS antenna amplifier. Okay, so there it is. That's the NATS antenna amp. Lives right over the ignition key cylinder. So let's take off the steering column cover, find this guy, check power, ground, and communication. Alright, here is our antenna unit. Connectors unplugged, power and ground. Hey, we got a test light, so 2 out of 4 wires verified. Now we can check the signal wires and see if they do anything when the BCM checks the key. So in the BCM, read fault code with the antenna unplugged. No fault codes. Interesting. I wonder why I wouldn't set a circuit code for that antenna. Let's see what kind of data stream. That's it. We just have ignition switch on, off. Well, that's not very useful. So I think we'll have to use the scope to check these signal wires at the antenna. Okay, so I have both signal wires, 2 channels on the PICO scope, piercing probes. Right now the antenna is unplugged. Okay, let's see what happens with the antenna unplugged when we put the key in, turn it on. Nothing, right? Okay, let's plug it in, see what happens. We can squeeze that connector back in there. And now, again, nothing happens. So my question is, what's supposed to trigger the antenna? Because obviously the voltage is coming from the BCM. And these 2 wires are identical. I mean identical right now on the voltage scale. So that's kind of strange. I don't really know what's a known good. Ooh, interesting. So I tried just bumping the key, to crank it. Voltage dropped to 4 volts, that's fine. But look at here, look at this spike. What happened? It looks like something was happening. Like communication. And right now this sucker's unplugged. So what does that tell you? I think the BCM is fine. It's trying to talk to this antenna. It's just a bad antenna. Powers and grounds check out. Signal lines are fine. So maybe eBay, try to find a NATS antenna, plug it in, and this thing would fire up. I think, so this right here is key. Oscilloscope. You cannot do this diagnosis accurately without an oscilloscope. The dealer just said, hey, you need a BCM and a NATS antenna. I mean, come on. BCM's fine. At least that's what it looks like. No code set. It's just not getting a response from the antenna itself. Okay, let's repeat that experiment with the antenna plugged in and see if there's any difference whatsoever in the signals, or if this antenna is just completely dead. So let me plug that in, if I can reach the plug. Okay, it's clipped in. Let's roll the scope. So key off. Look. Key on. Bump. Key off. Okay, we got something. Is this exactly the same as with the antenna unplugged? Yes, it looks exactly the same. That right there. And then the other spike was right here. Again, exactly the same. So unplugged or plugged in, the antenna isn't doing anything. It's not modulating these signals, I guess. So that's my call. It needs a new antenna, needs a new battery. Hopefully we can get a part number for this thing and look one up on eBay. Okay, so the owner got a brand new or used NATS antenna from eBay. So we just plugged it in, and as long as it sees the key, we'll see if the car starts. Moment of truth. This. And no, it sounds like it's compression's low. Let's check this antenna with the tester.
Nissan part.
So we have our tester here. And check out what happens when I bring it close to the antenna. The red LED is just on all the time. I've never seen this before. So it doesn't matter if you turn the key or not, the antenna is just drawing current all the time. So it's not going to check the key, it's not going to talk to the BCM if we unplug it. So keep looking at the LED. And now it's off. Plug it back in. So unfortunately this eBay part is also defective, so they do fail with age. So we need a brand new one, and they are available. More expensive, but it should work. So off, on, off, on. Oh well, we're not going to get this Nissan started today. Alright, so again, off of eBay, I got a supposedly Nissan Group genuine parts antenna assembly made in GB, Nissan North America, Johnson Controls, and just putting power and ground to it, to the right pins. The LED's on all the time. Is that the way it's supposed to work? We have 12 volts going to it. No current draw, but this thing's putting out a field. I really don't know if this is going to work on the car. Just so happens we have a 2008 Nissan in the shop. I just want to demonstrate what the ring is supposed to do when you turn the key. So it's supposed to be off normally, then accessory, and then when you flick it to on, see that flash? It checks the key, and then you can start the engine. So just one flash, not a constant radio, emitting LED. So I think these eBay antennas are complete garbage. Even though they say genuine Nissan parts and they're backward at the dealer, there's a demand for them, so people are gonna sell them online. But question is, why don't they work? I'm not sure. I mean, the circuitry in there is very proprietary, and just because it plugs in doesn't mean it's going to work. So I'm wondering if I can either steal this one or my wife's Nissan, just take it for a day and see if the connector fits. We can just plug it into that 350Z and see if it fires up. That's the only thing I can think of to rule out this potential eBay counterfeit NATS antenna. Everything else seems to work. We checked the signal wires. The BCM was sending some kind of signal to the key, to the NATS antenna. Powers and grounds are obviously good. We just don't know if we have a known good part, because we already tried two from eBay. That's the only source I can find. So potentially, if these are not too hard to remove, we can take one off the Nissan, this one, or I actually have a 350Z coming in tomorrow for other service, another one. I think it's a 2006, so it should be identical. So if I can get the NATS antenna off of that one, I want to try to fire up the one that's dead right now. It might be the only thing left to do. At the very least, we can do this ring key check on the known good 350Z just to be 100% sure that the system functions like this. It's crazy. Alright, so on this Nissan Versa, I got the steering column cover popped off. Put the key around here. This is the original antenna. Saw the flash there. Now what I'm finding is if you unplug it, let me unplug it. Okay, and you plug it back in. So if you cut power to this thing, it'll actually light up the LED dimly until you cycle the key. Let me show you that. Alright, here we go. So you see the LED is on. It flashed bright and now it's fully off. Let's see if this aftermarket or suspected aftermarket antenna will work exactly the same. So unplug that, plug this sucker in, we'll put it right around, close enough. So LED is dim. It flashed and it works. Okay, so this thing works. Now we have to figure out why the 350Z, we want to see the flash when we turn the car on. Now we can measure the signals here from the BCM to see what it's doing and then compare it to the broken car. Okay, so on this Nissan Versa, I want to take the exact same oscilloscope capture of those two communication wires at the NATS antenna. So this is what we had for the 350Z, blue and red traces. So the blue was this green and white, and the red trace was a brown wire. Now what are those exactly? Well, they're just, pin 2 and pin 4 going to the BCM. Looking at the same diagram for the Versa, they're actually labeled. Pin 2 is clock and pin 4 is receive and transmit. So on this capture, apparently this was clock, is just it should be constant train of pulses. We'll actually use a higher resolution here. And then this is the transmit and receive. So on this capture, let's play it, and we'll reduce that, and we'll bump up the number of samples per screen. So let's put the key in. So this is with the antenna unplugged. What did we see? This is very, very different. So check this out. This looks very similar to what we saw in the 350Z. But what is this? A lot more communication going on. Very different. There's a clock, there's a communication pulse, and then there's a lot of communication here. So this is with the antenna unplugged. Let's save that, and then we'll check with the antenna plugged in. Alright, next experiment, let's just plug the antenna in. Do the same thing. Roll the scope. Key on. No security light. A little bump, and then I'll turn the key off. Interesting. So a lot less communication when the key is correct, but a lot more than we saw with the 350Z. So what does this mean? The only thing it can mean is there's a problem in the BCM, unfortunately. So the diagnosis, the initial diagnosis where I said the antenna was bad, it could still be bad, but the BCM seems to be having a problem. It's not doing this correct check. It's just doing a step at that point in time, but this is not correct. This is supposed to be communication just like on this car, which is a known good. So what's the next step? Go for the BCM. Unplug it, do a visual inspection if there's any corrosion, or it could be something on the board which you can't visually see. Now the owner does have a spare BCM, so we could plug it in. I'm not sure if it has to be programmed to the vehicle or what. Maybe it doesn't. You know, it's a 2006. But if it's a used BCM from the same make and model, we plug the BCM in and we see something different on this key-on cycle, like it's trying to talk to the NATS antenna, then we're going to call this BCM. So this is not a straightforward diagnosis if you don't have any known good waveforms or a known good car to compare to. Luckily, all these Nissans from 2004 to 2014 or even later use the exact same protocol, same NATS antenna, same part number, so they have to work exactly the same way. And we see a definite difference between a known good Nissan and the one that's not starting. So we'll go back there, get the scope back out. The owner does have that spare BCM. We'll plug it in and see if anything changes. So back to the 2006 Nissan 350Z again. So the owner, he already had a spare eBay used BCM in stock. So all I want to do is plug this thing in, turn the key, and with the oscilloscope measure the signals on these two wires and see if they're any different than the BCM that's installed right now. If they are, then we'll see if this NATS antenna works. I don't think it's alive because when you plug it in, it doesn't give you any signal like the good ones. So that's crazy. If the BCM and the antenna went bad at the same time, maybe that's a common thing. I don't know. But we'll. I want to know what this BCM does when you turn the key to on. So the connectors look good. The pins look clean. No green crusties or water intrusion, so that's a good thing. Let's plug in the used BCM and hook up the scope. Okay, so last time with the original BCM, we had this kind of a wide pull down pulse on both channels, and then the little pulse right here. Let's see if I can get a good mouse pad. So this is bad, and then this is supposedly normal. Okay, so let's plug in the scope. We'll set it up for high resolution capturing. Two million samples per second. We hook up the battery and we'll turn the key to see what happens. Okay, moment of truth. So we're at 12 volts on both lines. We'll put in the key, and on this page we'll, yes, that's good. So now we just need the new NATS antenna. Well, we could try to plug it in this one, see if it does anything, but if this one's burnt out, it could have potentially taken out the BCM, so I don't want to try that. Let's plug in one of the replacements. Okay, so I have the customer's NATS antenna plugged in right here, and we'll run the scope. And I also want to see what the little LED ring does when we turn the key, so let me try that. So you can see right now the LED is dimly illuminated. Put the key in the ignition slot. We turn it on. Boom. Yes. Okay, now I'm sure we'll set an immobilizer code. The little red LED is still on, but it did read the key. So now let's get the scanner out and program this key to this replacement BCM. Hopefully this car will start very soon. Okay, so let's clear these DTCs out and see if the only code remaining is, wrong key. And then we'll do the NATS Anti-Theft programming for this. You just have one key, Hong?
Just one.
Just one key? Okay. So we'll program that in. Hopefully that goes through. Okay, so let's go into NATS Anti-Theft System. We just want to program a key. Now, the BCM's not original, but I'm just going to say when performing key registration, yes. So let me take a picture of this with my phone. So 5870 should be the password. 5870, okay. And we'll take a picture of this. Touch OK. Insert ignition on position, yes. You see the key is blinking. Okay, so that should be good. Well, let's start the car. Let's see.
Okay.
The light is off. Come on, come on, come on, come on. There he is, the owner. Woo! back in business. Yeah. We got some blue smoke. Gonna let this thing warm up.
Yes.
And we just have to reassemble everything. We'll put in the new BCM. That is victory.
Yeah, victory.
Victory.
Yeah.
So bad BCM, Huang, and bad antenna. What do you think? The dealer was right.
Yeah, dealer is right.
But how much did they quote you for the replacement?
$400.
Okay, how much did you spend on eBay?
Totally about $200.
Okay, so it's a good savings?
Yeah, good savings.
Okay,
actually.
so we got it back, and that's it. So we learned some good stuff on the signals going to this antenna. I'll put the pictures or the waveforms in the link at the description so you guys can open PICO scope and see what the difference is between a bad BCM, a good BCM, and this NATS antenna. So I don't want to plug in. Should we try plugging in the original antenna, or would that screw up the signal lines? I don't know. There's one thing, something got cooked, and both items are bad. We saw that. Now the BCM is fixed, and the antenna works, so I actually would not plug in the old antenna into this new BCM. So that's it. Thanks all for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. So a little bonus footage. Here's how you actually replace the NATS antenna. There's one bolt holding it in. You got to get this instrument cluster kind of up and out of the way. That's 4 bolts attaching it to the instrument or the steering column, and then you can get to this screw from up here. Okay, so we'll take off the bad one. And then install the good one, mark this one bad.